And we are back. We are back behind the news desk. This is News and Brews. It has been an awesome morning so far, and I'm really looking forward to having this next conversation because it's something that I'm really, really passionate about. I get to be here with Camille Sackett from Accede Mold in Rochester, New York. Thank you for taking some time and joining us at the News and Brews desk.
Well, it is always a pleasure to spend time with you, Tony.
Oh, shucks.
Yeah.
You're too nice. So one of the things that I want to talk about with you, and we'll get there, is the idea and the importance of American manufacturing, especially when it comes to mold building. I was just talking with Lori Harbour, and just that idea that we know that not everything is going to be built and made in the U.S. That's just unreasonable. But there are certain things that need to be and should be made in the U.S. First of all, let's talk about what Accede does.
Well, for context, Accede is a family-owned mold builder. We build Class 101 injection molds. We serve the medical, industrial. We do a little bit of automotive, consumer packaging. So pretty good mix of work. A third typically in that consumer packaging, and then the vast majority of our work that we're doing is in the medical space. So, and again, mold making, it's very broad, a lot of different types. So Class 101, meaning we're building molds that are lasting for 1 million shots or more. So that's high cavitation, stack molds, cube systems, a lot of two-shot. So that's Accede. And again, so we are family-owned. Al Fox started the business. Again, his background, he was a tool room supervisor in a manufacturing plant, Thermo Fisher, which was now Gene Nunk, and decided as he wanted to try running and starting his own business, and decided to start Accede. That was in 1981. His son, Roger Fox, started out on the shop floor as an apprentice, did some prior work experience in production manufacturing, and so that we grew from a little shop that serviced Eastman Kodak and Xerox and B&L and General Motors and the businesses that are around us to providing molds that are used all over the world to produce products that everyone's using. And I started out in 1993 as a co-op in the engineering department, hired by Don Hickel, who's still in the industry. He was my first mentor, engineering supervisor, and did tool design for 22 years, and then moved over onto the commercial side with Roger Fox in about 2015, I would say.
Yeah, I love it because, you know, women in manufacturing is it's another one of those buzzwords, right? Like women in manufacturing, how do we get more women involved? What does that look like, right? Typically, you would look around the room and it was a bunch of old, middle-aged white guys. You've never been an old, middle-aged white guy. But you've always been in the room, right? You've been an engineer. You've been on the manufacturing side. You have been an intricate part of building your whole career.
Yeah, it is fun and interesting. I have 3 children, so it was interesting to go through as they were starting university to see how it's changed. When I started I started drafting in 6th grade, so went to Trade and Tech High School. I had family before me that worked. I grew up outside of New York City, so I'd grown up in and around manufacturing with the General Motors plant in Tarrytown, seeing the automation in the 80s. It was amazing to see cars put together on assembly lines and the team of people that could make that happen. So I knew I wanted to be around that and to be a part of a team and to be able to help create things that were useful to people in society. It really, because I grew up in and around it, I didn't realize that I looked different. I didn't look like, when you're a minority, you don't know that everyone else, you don't think about it, sees it in that way, until someone else points it out is when it made me feel uncomfortable
Sure.
and called it out. But that was just me. And so it's changed. At RIT, I was one of the only women in manufacturing, and through my trade and tech, there were usually just 3 of us out of 100. But as long as we were treated no differently, we didn't know that we were different.
Right. And so that's amazing, and I love that story. And it's great to see that you found a home where you did, where all those values are continued. It's a family business. It's not a corporate giant, right? All those same values are really important to the Fox family.
Absolutely.
As well as the idea of being made in America.
Absolutely. And touching on that, so again, my first co-op was at Eastman Kodak, and then my second co-op was with the family-owned company. And in the bigger organization, it's where I did sometimes feel uncomfortable and felt diminished. And again, this is a long time ago, not that
Of course.
there's
We're
the
not saying that
disclaimer
about you
that-
now.
No,
That's just
exactly.
the past.
But what helped me, again, to be at Accede since 1993, it was a very paternal environment. The mold makers that were on the shop floor were eager to share their knowledge and help raise me up and pass on their knowledge. There's a lot of pride in what they're doing. So given the opportunity, when there's apprentices that come in, they and I think maybe even being a woman, a young girl in the industry, they were probably easier on me than they are with the hazing back in the day that would happen. I bet you have some stories with your dad about what that environment was like.
My father worked with old German guys, and they were the mold makers, the German guys, and they were really good at what they did, but they were not easy on him, right? Like his nickname, I can't even say, it was Dip, fill in the blank, Greek. That's what they called him. That was his name. He didn't have a name. That's what he identified as. That's what he answered to. And that whole generation, that way of doing things is long gone when it comes to manufacturing spaces.
The boys still do tease each other quite a bit.
Of course. I mean, there's always going to be a little bit of poking and ribbing and a little bit of, like, that's what you do when, I mean, mainly it's out of care and love and testing. Like, are you going to stick around?
Yeah. No, but it's good. So why is mold building and why is manufacturing important in the United States? And my goodness, we just lived through a global pandemic.
Right.
And when the borders were shut down and we needed to scale up and build diagnostics devices, when people needed their medication, their insulin pumps, gosh, if the borders are shut now, what, right? We needed to scale up and build ventilators. And to not have those capabilities, you have a huge gap where kids were not going into manufacturing and not interested in pursuing careers. Then what? When you can't rely on other countries to supply that labor for you. So it's important for national defense. It's important because of the jobs that it creates. Again, you don't have to go to university to become an apprentice. You can start out and have that practical experience, essentially do your lab work first. And then companies like Accede, they paid for my college, so I didn't have these huge debts, and they continue to invest as I take on new roles and opportunities. Again, I can go back and I have the opportunity to take additional formal education, but it creates jobs, it creates opportunities, it benefits communities, it benefits generations.
Now, what questions do you have?
What questions do I have for you?
Yeah, I mean, that's what you said. You said, can I push back on you? And I thought,
do.
Here we go.
I'm curious because, again, it's what's different today. Why are people not going into manufacturing as much? Why do we have to market and recruit it as an opportunity? When you look at what year were you found? What did your dad start the business?
47 years ago.
Right, and so Accede started over 40 years ago. So what's different in the climate then, the circumstances that your dad, Al Fox, that they could start their businesses? What's changed?
Yeah, I think it's that gumption, that grit, that hard work, that determination, that like you're not going to hold me down kind of a thing. Like my father's one of those people, he doesn't like to lose. And if he sets out to do something, he's going to do it no matter what that looks like. And so, he's a first generation immigrant from Greece. He came when he was 7 years old. His father worked in a bakery. He didn't have a lot of money. He basically was told not to come back to his classes. He would get a D if he never walked back in because he was a real pain in the butt to have as a student. And so he went from that to becoming a successful player in the industry. How does that happen? It happens because every single day he got up and he went to work, and he found new ways to provide for his family and to grow something that he believed in, and he didn't let anything hold him back. So he went from not knowing anything to finding a way to do it, and going back every single day and coming back and realizing that at some point this is going to pay off, right? So I wouldn't see my dad till 9 o'clock at night, and I would say goodnight to him, and I would go to bed, and I think that hard work and determined. Now, I'm not saying people don't work hard. That's not what I'm saying. But I think it's different. I think that the effort is different.
That's what I'm curious too. Why do you think he was motivated, and that he had the sense that he had to do this? He had to sacrifice and spend time away from his family. What was the alternative?
I think the alternative is that you don't have, right? And nobody is there to say, here.
Agreed, and I think the same way. So Al and Nancy Fox, they were young parents. They had 3 kids to provide for. Failure was not an option. They had to succeed and had to work, and same for Roger. And yeah, those values are instilled, and now, again, we're so proud. We have the 3rd generation in the workforce, Corey and Mitchell Fox, Danielle Fox, and those values, that grit, that hustle, it's passed down generation to generation, and it benefits so many other families in creating jobs and opportunities for people to gain skills that they can use globally. If you wanted to be a mold maker anywhere in the world, you can take those skills. Nobody takes those away from you.
Yeah. So we're going to wrap up soon, but why is it important when somebody is looking to source their products, right? People are looking at the shop floor. They're walking around. They're trying to figure out where they're going to go, who are they going to talk to, what players are there. Why is it important for people to consider the American mold builder as opposed to something offshore?
De-risking your projects. You have, if you're a contract manufacturer or if you're an OEM and you need to manufacture, if you need products that you need to be able to sell to your markets, you want to de-risk your supply chain. If you're selling to consumers in the United States, you need to de-risk that. And by having American mold builders, American support services in manufacturing, you're de-risking that by shortening those supply chains. And case study is COVID, with what we all just lived through.
Because what happens, right? Inevitably, there's going to be something that goes wrong with the tool or the molding process or whatever. And if you build that here, you have your team here that knows the tool intricately because they made it. You don't have to try and get answers from anywhere offshore. You just go to your guy. You go to, Roger or Mitchell or whoever it is and say, hey, I'm having a problem with this. Can you guys help me?
Absolutely. And that's the short game. The long game is, it's great to think that peace will persist, and that there will be no wars and there will be no pandemic ever again. But we de-risking in the short term and de-risking in the long term. It's planning for the worst and hoping for the best.
Camille, thank you so much for being part of our News and Brews time. I appreciate everybody for listening and watching and sharing your thoughts and your honestly, your passion. I mean, you are one of my favorite people to talk to every time I see you because of what you bring to the industry and who you are and what your company is. So thank you for all of that. Right now, we are going to go to Ann walking around the show floor. Ann, what are you seeing that's cool out there?